And he is coming to church now, but hasn't always. His way of dealing with that has been to become an alcoholic, and he's dependent on recreational drugs as well. And I'm wondering whether amongst, I think this is a huge problem for society, we see it a lot. I'm wondering about those people who would perhaps identify themselves as Christians as well, whether it's also, I think the stigma about alcohol and drugs has been removed. Actually, when I was growing up, there was a massive stigma about getting drunk and having drugs, and now I think it's not there in the same way.
In a different way, probably.
Sorry?
I think it would be there in a different way.
In a different way.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering if that's an issue, basically.
Yeah.
There's definitely an idea of self-medicating.
Yeah.
We didn't really separate that out. I mean, I was sort of like it within mental health because it is sort of often recognised that, say, men's higher rates of drug use and alcohol is often seen as being the parallel to women's higher rates of depression, that they're self-medicating. So I suppose I would have put it together with that, but perhaps we should split it out. That's a
well, I'm not saying to split it out, I'm just thinking
it's important.
how big how big an impact that has perhaps on all this.
And I think within the activist community, again, it's used as a way to cope
and amongst young people who are spiritually active, say, even if they're not, they might identify themselves as Christians or not, but I'm just wondering how big an issue that is amongst that part of the community.
I don't think we've got any research on that. But,
it's the challenge that you're giving us here, that because we deal with issues that can impact on mental health, we have an obligation, a responsibility, a pastoral obligation in a sense, to recognise that there is that dimension of the personal experience that needs to be named and
I think so.
Supported.
Yeah, and I think also, like, I think any group, sort of activist or not, that is encouraging people to do things and be quite proactive, I think just needs to recognise the capacity issue and be able to say to someone, no, it's okay. Like, I think as well, perhaps we have quite a, like, I think if you are involved in kind of activism and that kind of thing, it can feel like time spent on yourself is really selfish. Whereas actually, obviously, people really need that time to be in order to facilitate the doing. But I think there are cultures where that's just not allowed, or you feel really bad. You're like, oh my gosh, like all I've done tonight is like watched a film. That's dreadful. You know, when there's so many, there's so many problems in the world. But that film time is really important. So I think it's just that kind of recognition. I think.
And being part of the community, that helps you balance all that, doesn't it?
And looks out for and like shares the work and takes stuff off people if they're struggling. And
I think Green Christian actually has that emphasis on people being valued for people and not for what they do. And so it's, I suppose, just making, really embracing that and making more of that, because that is so rare and in society generally.
So that can answer. The other thing with the constant crisis narrative, because we talked about this in climate change, that sometimes there's a feeling like this conference we have to run it, and obviously there is a sense of urgency, but there's been quite a lot of work done that this doesn't necessarily motivate as much as you would think it would. Like in George Marshall's book, he talks about this constant idea of the crisis, and that's quite draining on people's mental health as well, because obviously they're not going to feel like they take evening off if you tell them that everything depends on spending their evening doing something else. So again, the way we talk about it can make people more or less stressed.
And that's something which is all over the media.
Yeah.
Everything is a constant crisis.
Yeah, exactly. But we can choose to talk about it in a different way that's more hopeful. That's part of our book's here, because I felt there were certain things that we, as values here, and I think we do, but like the idea of letting loose take actually not that particular one. Is one of the ones that Sharon.
No, I think
sorry, I didn't want to interrupt. We have tried to not to overemphasise our natural earnestness. We are very earnest people. If you come tomorrow, you'll meet a lot of earnest people who clutch their gardens and are often bearded, as far as my gender is concerned, and who think they've got a responsibility to save the world. So there will be this sort of heavy, earnest attitude. And I'm pretty heavy and earnest myself. But we have tried to correct this by having the slogan, joy in enough. So the key word actually isn't enough, it's the joy in enough. And I honestly think we're not doing enough about the joy bits.
That's
something we're going to...